Hello and welcome to the final episode of this Crusade list project. This is my Space Wolves Crusade list. If you've been following it along, I'll certainly be doing some more videos around 40k Crusade going forward. But really, I've achieved what I wanted to with this project. The Space Wolf project was one to build a new Crusade list from scratch, talk about it on YouTube while putting it all together, go through how I painted up, learn some new painting techniques. I wasn't really that good on things like skin or fur before, so try out some new things, try and do the army on the cheap, try and get some parts second hand, and try and do some kit bashing with parts I left over. And I would say that when I go through what I've done recently with the army, you'll see that I've sort of gotten to the point where I'm happy with it. I'm happy to put it aside now as a completed army. I'll probably pull out still from time to time, but I'm going to move on to other projects after this one as well. So really, the culmination of the whole project has been the fact that I took the army along to a local, I'll call it a tournament, probably not really, tournament's not the right word for it, but it was a local games day with multiple rounds, multiple opponents, different scoring metrics, to see sort of how the group did, how the force did. And I guess this is one of the things I quite like about Crusade, because all these people playing at this event were not playing Crusade. I simply took along my Crusade army, and you can play a Crusade army in match play. There's a few things you have to do. First off, I didn't use any of my Crusade traits, so none of the battle honors, none of the special abilities or the relics that the Crusader got. It was basically units from my Crusade force run as a standard match play army. I still picked agendas for myself to do. I still recorded kills. I still then tracked experience points on my Crusade development, and got recognition points for completing the games. But effectively, what you can do is, if you want to take your Crusade army and play it at a store, you can. You just take on the forces and play it like it's an all game. And I suppose one thing that would have been strange is if I had chosen agendas that required an action, explain to my opponent, look, I'm doing this action for the purposes of the Crusade, won't have any bearing on this game. You know, if anything, it's in your advantage because my unit can't shoot because they're doing this action now. But all of the agendas I ended up taking for the games were not action-based agendas. So, look, I got to play some match play games, and my Crusade list developed because of it. And the other thing I liked about it was the fact that I fought units that I would have never fought in my home group. Because they were armies that I don't normally play against, but also because we've got this sort of house rule in our own Crusade forces that we don't use named characters. Named characters in Crusade can't get XP, they can't earn new battle honors or get battle scars for that matter. So we tend to say, let's have no named characters. And in every single battle I played at this little tournament event, there were named characters. So I was really fighting units I had no scope for understanding of. So let's go through the games I played and how they turned out. So obviously these were points-based games rather than power level-based. So it was 1,500 points. I chose to take along all of the firstborn stuff in my army. So that was the captain and the librarian, the bloodclaws, the long fangs, the wolfen, the dreadnought, the bikes, the aircraft. I think the only thing I couldn't fit in from my firstborn stuff was my Terminators. There just wasn't enough points to go around, and not enough elite slots either, for that matter. So all the Primaris stayed at home, so no Assault Intercessors, no regular Intercessors, no Hounds of Mordecai. So it was really... And they did ask everybody, what is the theme of your army? So I explained this is all firstborn Space Wolves, and I explained about how this was part of a project to paint up and do a new army for YouTube. So my first opponent was playing Ultramarines, and as you can see looking at lists, and I will say with this list, by the way, I didn't go through and record every single facet of my opponent's armies. I've put here what I know they had based on what they used in the game in terms of things like Warlord traits and the like. You might find with other lists I don't have as much detail, nor have I done a points breakdown. I did check the points to make sure they were all within the 1,500. I hadn't gone misremembered that something else was there, but the list is not necessarily complete. But this is roughly what I was up against. So you'll see here my opponent here had both Marneus Calgar and Chief Librarian Tigurius on the board. And for the first game of the day where everyone was playing, we were playing primary objectives only. So this is hold 1, hold 2, hold more. with no secondary objectives for the match play game. So it was purely on just primary points. And I think I had an advantage here because Ultramarines are not... They're a bit more of a gunline army. They're not all about taking the center field. And of course, Space Wolves being very fast, they are. I guess the one thing that really screwed me up here was I wasn't used to the sheer amount of terrain on the table, like the amount of line of sight blocking stuff that just made it so that my Long Fangs sat back in a building and didn't have a lot to shoot at for most of the game. So my opponent did put his heavy intercessors in a building and they were in range, so we did exchange some heavy firepower between my Devastators, or my Long Fangs, and these intercessors, but because of the... heavy intercessors. But because of the nature of cover, not much really happened there between those two sides. So the other thing was that I sent my Thunderwolf cavalry off after an objective. I didn't really use them to do... I didn't plan to use them to go killing. And my opponent sent a squad of Outriders off to deal with the Thunderwolf cavalry. And I came off better in that encounter. I wiped out the Outriders. I think I was only down to one Thunderwolf left after that was all said and done, but he was in a building on an objective and racking up points every turn, and my opponent just, between the fact he was in cover with a storm shield, they just could not get the hits to kill him as well. So at the end of the day, I did win this game. It was certainly a hard-fought victory. So I only killed his Outriders. I killed Tigurius with the Wolfen. I actually had the Wolfen charge both Calgar and Tigurius in one charge. And I split the attacks up and I killed Tigurius pretty convincingly, but I didn't manage to take out Calgar. And then he also healed himself thanks to the Apothecary. The Primaris Apothecary in this list as well. So I never got close to actually taking out Calgar. But yeah, the Outriders taken out by the Thunderwolves. My captain did manage to kill his aggressor squad before he died, so the aggressor sort of went off to the southeast objective as I was looking at it, and my captain went and dealt with them, although he didn't survive in the long term. And then also he had a squad of an Inceptor squad, which my Long Fangs took out. So at the end of the game, all that survived was my Thunderwolves, my Stormwolf, and my Long Fangs. So I definitely had more units killed. Well, more of my units were killed than I killed of his, but I just had the points win. There was just... I had early board control. The Thunderwolf turned out to be a real distraction for him. In fact, the Thunderwolf, I was very impressed all day how it did. In this game, it was... I think it was down to 2 wounds left at the end of the game, but still, a bugbear in my opponent's side. So, it was great to play. A player never played before. I'm used to playing Ultramarines, so playing against them was a lot of fun too, so it was a great way to start off the day. Then on to my second game, which was this time against Orcs. And in this case, speaking of special characters, my opponent had both Ghazgrul Thraka and Makari. His first battle had been against Dark Angels, where he'd sort of struggled, he'd been kited around the board a bit. And then this game, just the layout we got from the mission pack, we were playing long ways down the board, so the longer edge was... we were lined up along the shorter edge, and there was a big gap of no man's land, something like 30-odd inches. So for our first couple of turns, it was really just trying to get guys in range. Neither of us had much shooting. He had some boys with rocket launchers, but when they're on the advance, they're just so inaccurate that it really didn't mean much. He was playing Goths, so he was all about trying to get his forces into close combat. Now, this was a game that I did some very early damage with the Stormwolf. The Stormwolf flew up the board. He didn't really have anything with fly that could take on a melee combat, nor did he have a lot of good shooting. So, I took out his Death Dread before it even got to act in the first turn. The Stormwolf also ended up taking out his Weird Boy, and finished off one whole squad of boys as well. So, yeah, it was super. It did take some hit from his looters, and in one hit, or like one set of hits from the unit, he took it down to 1 wound, but it managed to survive the rest of the battle on that 1 wound, because it flew away, and the looters just didn't have a chance to shoot at it. So, I had the Blood Cause chase down Makari, and after enough attacks, he failed his 2+ save, and he died pretty quickly thereafter. And then they went on to actually fight and kill Ghazghkull Thraka as well. So he went over, dealt with most of them, but my Bloodclaw Sergeant, or pack leader, dealt the killing blow on Gaz. The Dreadnought also took out the other squad of boys. The Wolfen charged and destroyed his truck. So it was a pretty heavy game. I think at the end of the game, what he had left was his Pain Boy and like 2 or 3 looters left, and I just had the Stormwolf. That was it. So we were playing with this one. What were the rules for it? It didn't. It's still a primary. Oh, that's right. Okay, this was a weird one. This had happened at a tournament in Australia a few weeks beforehand, and they were using some of those tournament rules. Effectively, there were 3 different objectives. There was a physical objective marker on the board. There was having more opponents more models in your opponent's deployment zone than they had in yours. And there was, I think, overall unit kills. And what happened was you didn't know what was going to be the actual objective in the end. So at the end of the game, you basically rolled a dice. On a 1 or 2, it was one of them. 2 or 3, it was the other. 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6. So you wanted to try and complete as many of those objectives as possible to give you the best chance of winning the game at the end. And in actuality, I was behind on 2 of the 3 objectives. I only had 1 of them won. Because with the Stormwolf, unfortunately, didn't count, no boots on the ground, didn't count for being in the opponent's deployment zone. I wasn't near the target objective, but I did have the most kills. So that was what we rolled as the final objective. So I did win the game. Very luckily, I had a 1 in 3 chance of winning at the end. But I did win the game. And I think, once again, both myself and my opponent had a really great time. It's always good when you've got 2 melee armies just running at each other, and then the last guy to die wins the game. That's pretty much it. But a lot of fun. That leads me on to the third game, which this time was against Craftworld Eldari. And of course, this tournament was done after the Eldari book was out. Obviously, you can see here the Avatar of Cain model. My opponent was playing Ulthwé, so they had Eldrad Ulthrin. This was also, I should mention by the way, Armor of Contempt had already come out as a rule for Space Marines. So this was really my first chance to see how Armor of Contempt played in. This last game was a punish. And it once again came down to the rules that they'd taken from the Australian tournament a few weeks beforehand. So the rule of this was that there was a zone in the middle of the board, 6 inches from the center of the board, and you could only score by killing units either in the zone or by being in the zone when you killed a unit. If both you and the unit you killed were outside the zone, you actually took negative points. So, but then there was also bonus points for holding the zone at the end of the battle. So the intent was obviously that everyone runs to the middle. The issue was that my opponent had quite a shooty army. So he had Guardian Defenders, he had Dire Avengers, he had Wraith Guard with the Wraith Cannons, he had a Flyer, and I had a predominantly melee army. In fact, multiple of my units had no ranged weapons at all. So my only option was to run to the middle and then hope that my opponent joined me there. And to be honest, if I was my opponent and I saw this, I would realize that all I would have to do in this case is just shoot at my stuff in the middle and get the points and never enter the middle until the last turn if there was any risk of losing it based upon the points. So the tournament organizer chose this particular mission from the pack, but I don't know whether there was some more nuance when it was run at an earlier tournament that wasn't picked up here, because I was never going to win this game. And I want to really thank my opponent in this game, because he could see what the situation was. He knew that it was like horribly pitched to his side. So once it was clear that he'd killed a few units and I was never going to be in the game, he did actually have all of his units pretty much run to the middle even units that normally wouldn't have done so, just so that we could actually have like a big melee in the middle and get some kills and have some fun. So I did manage to kill the Avatar, despite how powerful the Avatar is. The Thunderwolves managed to take it out. He actually whiffed a couple of times on firing the Thunderwolves with the Avatar, so I was lucky there. My captain also managed to kill his Warlock Skyrunner. The Dreadnought ended up killing the Wraith Guard, and then the Thunderwolves also, once they killed the Avatar, they moved in and killed the rest of the Dire Avengers. So at the end of the battle, all that survived was my Dreadnought and my Thunderwolves. The other thing was I got first turn, and it was a whiff of a first turn. Like, the only shooting I really got to do was with the Thunderwolf, the Stormwolf, and I just had a horrible batch of rolling. It just did nothing, and my opponent, to his credit, had put his stuff into cover, so it was, the odds had certainly moved more in his favour. But I had things like rolling 6 dice, needing 4 pluses, and getting no 4 pluses, for example. That's just sometimes how it works. The important thing was that it was still a fun game to play, and once again, my opponent was really great for basically bringing the forces in, so we actually had a battle to do at the end, even though it was clear I was never going to win the game. So that was it. That was the 3 games I played at the small tournament. So 2 wins and a loss, but also because there was a prize for it wasn't best painted army, it was best themed army as such. So I said my theme was the whole Firstborn Space Wolves, done as a project, learning new painting skills, a lot of it built from scratch using spare parts, and that's how I sold it basically. And I won the award for that, so I got a painting rack as a prize for that. So it felt really good to sort of take this force along to basically a public event, and I guess get the recognition that it was a well painted army. So that felt really good to be able to do that. And more importantly, I got to play with new people. I got to experience new armies. I got to fight characters for the first time, and along with all that, I got to add the benefits of those battles into my Crusade force, and that felt like a really good place to sort of end off my focus on this Space Wolf project. So last thing I do now is just go through and take a look at all of the various units that I have in the Crusade force. I did add some more in just to sort of round it out there, and there were some more things I wanted to paint, but I'm not going to record the details of any further battles from this point forward. So this is my Crusade force at the end of this project. So Cargill Wormslayer, my captain, he never survived a battle. He was super effective. Got 7 kills, one of my highest kills in the game. He was my second highest XP, being heroic. In the end, he got up to the point I gave him Mark of the Wolf, which is +1 attack, and I think an additional attack if you're within a certain distance of a Wolfen unit. So he was an absolute melee beatstick. He had his whiff games as well, but overall, he could kill a lot, but he also died a lot, So he racked up some big opponents: Librarian Dreadnought, Squad of Dire Avengers, Primaris Captain, Vexillus Praetor from the Custodes, Farseer Skyrunner, Aggressor Squad, and then finally a Warlock Skyrunner. So a lot of fun to play. I'd never really done a Smash Captain before, and once again, this was a model that I just kit bashed together from all sorts of bits and pieces. There was no kit that made up this model. It was just bits and pieces put together from various things. All right, on to my Rune Priest, Rurik Weirdfang. So he had a total of 9 battles in the end. Did survive 2 of them, usually because he was a bit more of a backline person. I didn't actually get him into melee combat that much. I think 2 of his 3 kills were psychic at the end of the day. So he's killed a Bloodslaughterer, Cabalite Warriors, and one of Mike's Hive Tyrants. Ended off as battle hardened. So I also gave him the Mark of the Wolfen as well. So if he did get into melee combat, he was a bit more of a beatstick with the extra attack. And then also, one of the biggest drawbacks I find for librarians is a complete lack of an invul save. So this guy was good once he got the Halo Indominus, giving him that 4+ invul as well, and the ability to ignore half the mortal wounds coming his way. All right, Pax Stonehelm, my Blood Claws. got a few games with these guys. 8 battles fought, only 2 survived. These guys are they're meant to be thrown into the opponent. They're meant to die, but they get some kills as well. So killing both Makari and Ghazgrul really was great. For this unit to get those 2 big kills. Other than that, it's just been kills between. I think they've only killed things in games against my children. So my son's Impulsor and my other son's Farseer Skyrunner. But to get those kills on Gaz and Makari was great. They also got up to Heroic at the end of the day. I ended up putting Fleshbane on the Power Fist. So that's now a 3 damage weapon. Just because I've got a few opponents I play against normally that have -1 damage. And so much of the rest of my force has Thunderhammers. So it was nice and consistent to get 3 damage melee out of all of my my captains and pack masters. Only because the Bloodclaw kit didn't come with a did it come? No, it did come with a Thunderhammer, but I used it on the Smash Captain. So I went with the Power Fist instead. Alright, over to Pack Fellhammer. These guys didn't get another run because I was doing only firstborns, but they ended off my little sort of project here with 8 battles fought, 3 survived. A lot of kills. These guys did so well. They've done, just most recently, 3 groups of Squighog boys. So that's not 3 individual boys, it's 3 squads of 3. The Beast Snagger boys, the Beast Boss on Squigosaur plus Mike's Hiveguard, and before that, plenty of other kills across the various factions I played against. So, another really big XP amount on Heroic. I ended up with Veteran Warriors, giving the rarer ones to hit. So they're now weapon skill 2+. They can move fast. They've got 7-inch move, +1 advance and charge. And then, if they're near the captain, they can charge after advancing and then re-rolling ones to hit. So, a great damage dealing force. A lot of fun to use. And I think, to be honest, I'm going to sound conceited here, but I think that overall, this was probably the best painted squad I managed to get together, mainly because it was the first one I completed. So I was being a lot more careful learning the various techniques I wanted to use on the Space Wolves. And then subsequent squads, I probably went a bit faster on, just trying to get it done. So, I was really happy with how this squad turned out, both on the table, but also on display as well. My Long Fangs. So these guys were, up until this little tournament, they were a big disappointment. They had only played 3 games. They had never survived. They only had a single kill in those 3 games. And I just found too often they would just never where the battle was. They were a backline unit, and it was hard to have this much power level not involved in the frontline fight. So I was a bit down on the Long Fangs, but when I went to do the mini tournament and I couldn't put in my Terminators because I had too many elite slots, I put these guys in instead. And you know what? They were good. They managed to get a kill in the game against the Ultramarines. But they also, they did things. They pinned down some units. They made my opponents make some choices. Like in the game against Orcs, they made my opponent send his reserves after this unit, to take them out, which sort of tied up one of his units as well. So, they ended up battle hardened. I did give them reroll once to hit as well, so they're now weapons, ballistic skill 2 with reroll once to hit. It sort of cancels out the benefits of the Signum, but I guess if they were going to be using firing an opponent which takes a -1 to hit, you could then also use a Signum as well to improve that shooting. But it's not a very space. I mean, it's a Space Wolf unit, it's Long Fangs, but it didn't really play with the way that I played Space Wolves. But they did redeem themselves in the end. Unlike Pack Warfist, my Swift Claws. Swift Claws? I think the Swift Claws, yeah. One of them is, Swift Claws are the bike, Sky Claws are the Assault Marines. Yeah, these guys, they played 7 battles, they only survived 1. They never got a single complete kill. They certainly killed models, but they never finished units off, and they didn't last very long. I think the big problem here is only having 3 of them. One of the advantages that Space Wolves get when it comes to bikes, they can have much bigger units than Marines can normally. And I wasn't using it here, I was just running the standard 3. So, look, I was happy that the models turned out when I put them together and painted them. Once again, they're all kit bashed together from various kits and parts. But yeah, this particular squad was probably my most disappointing one overall in the course of the project. The Icescar Brotherhood, my Wolfen. 8 games played, none survived, but their presence was felt in pretty much every game they played. They started to become, especially with my friends, where they got used to this army, they were targeted very quickly, because if they get into melee combat, they can do some real work, especially once they got 2+ weapon skill, reroll ones to hit, and then the last thing I gave them, this was sort of in the final game, gave them +1 damage on the Wolfen's Frost Claws as well, so he's getting 2 damage with those multi-attacks that don't suffer from the same penalty that the Thunderhammers do. So yeah, these guys always did some work. Whatever they hit, they killed, but when they got hit, they died as well. But yeah, they did some great stuff, like killing Tigerius. Wiping out the Orc truck was a lot of fun as well, like making all the looters drop out. They got killed straight away afterwards, but yeah, it was such a fun unit to play with, and yeah, my opponent was always wondering what I was going to do with them next, and was always targeting them because they can be so effective. Brother Arncool, my venerable dreadnought. Yeah, this was such a fun model. I loved painting it. I loved using it on the battlefield. It played the most games at 11 games. It only survived 4, but look at these kills. 14 kills. More kills than anything else. More XP than anything else. Yeah, it was just such a great unit. And yeah, anyone I played against knew it was there straight away. It's like, I need to deal with that dreadnought. And he was so hard to kill with his -1 damage, and then his 6+ feel no pain, his 4+ invulnerable with his shield, and then that doesn't override Armor of Contempt, because it doesn't give you the +1 to save naturally, so it still goes in line with Armor of Contempt. So yeah, he was just so hard to kill, and opponents would spend whole rounds dumping all their shots in him and not do sufficient damage. He did die plenty of times, don't get me wrong. He died 7 times, more than he survived, but you know, it often took a lot for my opponent to do that. I did finally give him Fleshbane on his Great Axe. The main reason there was I wanted it so that when he was doing the sweep attack, he could do 2 damage, because I remembered very well the game I played against Brian's Black Templars, where he charged into a Crusader squad, 20-man Crusader squad, and even with his heavy attack, with his sweep attack, because it was only 1 damage, he was only killing 2 or 3 guys a turn, and he was just tar-pitted, held up there trying to deal with this Crusader force. Whereas if he was doing 2 damage a turn, with all his strength and hits, he would have cleared through a lot faster as well. So yeah, if I ever do use him again, it'd be great to see how he goes now he's got that +1 damage. All right, the Fangs, my Thunderwolf cavalry. 5 games played, 2 survived. Once again, a bit of not a throw unit. It's a unit that you expect to die, but they can do a lot while they're on the table. They've got great maneuverability. They can go and claim objectives. I really saw that with the first game against the Ultramarines, where the one surviving Thunderwolf just stubbornly refused to die, kept holding an objective, which meant I always had more than my opponent, so that therefore I always got the hold more bonus, and that way I knew I won the game. In fact, we didn't even play the last term of the game, because we worked out if my opponent couldn't kill the Thunderwolf in his turn 4, it was impossible for him to get the game back, and he just did that shooting, didn't kill it, and went, okay, well, and it wasn't like, you know, he was unhappy. It's just like, okay, well, great game. You know, it's the fact that the game came down to that sort of thing at the end. He felt made it a really close game, and I mean, even if he killed it, I think that he would have been mainly playing for a draw. A lot of things would have had to have gone right for him to win at that point in time. But yeah, it's still the Thunderwolf really did the business by just holding that objective. So yeah, great unit, a lot of fun to build and to paint. I gave them Deadly Predators in the end, so their teeth and claws now do 2 damage. So once again, if I'm up against elite opponents, that makes them a lot more effective. So 3 damage from the Thunderhammers, 2 damage from the teeth and claws. Yeah, a great unit. All right, Boulder Frostbane, being Primaris, didn't get a run at this TO, so he finished off the Crusade series with 3 battles fought, none survived once again. Never got any kills, but did make it to Blooded, which means I gave him the +1 damage on his Power Axe, because that really felt weak compared to everything else in my army. But also, he's a lieutenant. He's a buffing character. You know, he had his reroll 1s to wound, but he also had, because of his relic, the ability to make opponents fight last. So yeah, a real fun opponent to bring into battles, but I just didn't get to use him here because I wanted to focus on that firstborn side. Pack Gnarlfrost, my firstborn Terminators, who didn't get to go, unfortunately, because I didn't have the points or the elite slots. They in the whole run only got 1 Crusade game, but they did survive it, and they got 3 kills in that one game. So I will definitely look for opportunities to use this squad in games again. I'm happy with how it looks. Even then, I could even potentially take out individual parts of it and put them in as the Terminators that can be inside regular like Bloodclaw or Grey Hunter units. But for now, they'll stay as one unit on their own. But yeah, a great unit to play. Pack Ghosttooth, my Hounds of Morkai. Ended up playing 3 battles overall. Didn't play at this TO, or at this tournament. Only survived the 1 battle. They were more a project I wanted to paint because I wanted to try the darker shade of blue mixed with the lighter Space Wolf Grey. And yeah, look, it was fun to paint, but I don't think I would use these guys competitively. In the same way, I would never use Reavers competitively. They're just such a poor unit. These guys have some nice fluff, but yeah, it was more of a painting exercise for the purpose of this series. They did kill some termagants though in the process. My Flamestorm aggressors played 2 games, didn't survive either. I've done great with aggressors in the past. My Imperial Fist army, the aggressors are one of my highest XP units. I wanted to do Primaris aggressors with the Space Wolves because I like the way they look with the Space Wolf colour scheme, and I thought that whereas all my other armies, the aggressors are the Boltstorm variant, I thought I should do a Flamestorm variant for the Space Wolves, although they didn't get many games, but they were still a fun unit to put together. Pack Fireseeker, my regular intercessors. Once again, they were put in with a very specific goal in mind, which was for objective-seeking games, where from the experience I had with the game with 2 objectives on the board, where we had, at the end of the game, with a person on each objective, unable to hit the other, and neither one willing to leave the objective in order to go and claim the other, because they would go a point without the score, meaning that both games with that particular map became a draw. So I haven't played with them since. I had 1 game with them, but they didn't do a lot. That was a game where they could have won the game. The final turn, the sergeant on his own could have flamed a Squighog boy to death and then run in and punched the boss on Squigosaur to death. He managed to flame the Squighog rider to death, but then when he ran in and attacked the boss made all of his 5+ feel no pains and proceeded to trounce my intercessor. But once again, this was just a squad I put together to sort of try and complete the army. It wasn't really built around something I wanted to paint or play. My Stormwolf, Chill Wind. Yeah, my first time using it at this particular event. A lot of fun. My opponents had never really fought against it before and didn't really know how to deal with it. You know, it is very much like a flying Land Raider. You know, it's a 3+ save, lots and lots of wounds, toughness 7. Plus it can contain Wolfen and Terminators. And it allowed me to deploy my Terminators my Wolfen down the board in the battle against the Orcs. You know, it survived 2 battles, 1 on 2 wounds, 1 on 1 wound, but then proceeded to die in the very first turn of the 3rd battle against Eldar when it got targeted down by Wraith Cannons and a Hemlock Wraith Fighter. But yeah, in the games it did play, it got plenty of kills in that Orc battle. So yeah, I like this one a lot, and it got to Blooded, so I gave it Elite Crew for the reroll ones to hit. So that was it for my existing models. I wanted to do a last few models to really close it out, and one of the ideas I'd seen was taking spare pieces from this kit and putting them onto other vehicles. So I put together the Chariot of Russ, a Land Raider Redeemer. So as you can see, that I've got the Wolfen symbol there on the front. I've got the shields and pelts on the side. I sanded off the skulls on the outer covers for the sponsons, and instead stuck like 3D molded Space Wolf logos down, and then this was the first model in a while I really did some experimenting with weathering on. So I don't know how well you can see in this picture, but I did try to do a bit of armor chipping, a bit of dirt and muck, but then also obviously you can see there the snow on the treads. I looked at pictures of real tanks in the snow to try and get an idea of where the snow rests on the treads, both as the tank is moving and as it's stopped as well, to try and make the snow look better. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just Fellhammer Blizzard, but I'm happy with how it turned out anyway. So this unit is 14 PL. It's a huge cost, but I really wanted to do one. I've given it flamestorm cannons, the 100 killer missile, multi-melter, the storm bolter, and then the twin assault cannon, which is standard. So I'll never really get to see it as part of this series, but it was a great model to do. Next up, I've got just the pack, a group of Fenrisian wolves. I never really planned to use these guys. When I got invited to this tournament event, so it was called Chillhammer, and it was 1,500 points, but you were limited to only a single patrol, so you couldn't use any other attach type other than a single patrol. And when I was planning to go there, I was using the Warhammer 40k app on my phone to build out my army, what it was going to be, and I put together a 1,500 point army, and I was left over with like 45 points. I had nothing else that was 45 points. So I thought, okay, I'll go and buy a pack of Fenrisian wolves. They're about that many points. They're about 40 points, and put them into my army, and that will sort of cover that gap. So I went and bought this pack, and then I found out afterwards that there were issues with the calculations in the 40k app, because when I put it into Battle Scribe, I had heaps of points left over, so I went and reworked my list into one I ended up using. So I didn't actually use these guys in my final list, but I did decide, because I'd painted them, I may as well use some spare 2PL to put them in my Crusade list, so they are part of the sort of final outcome. And that left me on 121 total power level, so I thought I may as well go to 125. What can I do for 4 power level? I was looking at a land speeder for a bit, but in the end I decided to go with a Rhino. And so thus we have Eye of the Storm to sort of help get those blood claws into combat faster. So painting this was very similar to painting the Land Raider. I was applying the same techniques around chipping and mucking it up as well, and then using like the snow effects. So it's just a standard Rhino. It's got a Storm Bolter and a 100 killer missile. Nothing more exciting than that, but it's there as an option in my army in the future. So here is the final army list. You can see that the highest number of kills was definitely the Dreadnought. The Dreadnought also had the highest experience points and the highest number of battles played. And I think that one of the highest ratios of survives at 4 out of 11 is like 37% ish. And I think nothing else really got that close. Maybe Pack Fellhammer 3 out of 8 missions. In any case, you can see here that there was lots of various options to play with in the future if I would pull my Space Wolves again. I've told my group of friends that if they want to play my Space Wolves, let me know and I'll pull them out. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing other projects now and playing those other projects. But the one advantage it has got is it's a fully painted army now. So if I'm going to go to future events or go to stores to play, I would always rather bring along a painted army than an unpainted army. So I might pull out the Space Wolves again in the future. I have actually played 2 more events at that particular club or that particular store since this event. Neither of them were like mini tournaments, they were just individual games. So one game was my Imperial Knights, another game was with my Imperial Fists, both armies of which I had lots of things painted. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'll talk about how they did it in a different video. This video is more about the Space Wolves. So here is a final shot of the whole army laid out on the table. This project has been a great learning experience. I have gotten some new techniques down. I've gotten an award for painting these models. It's been so much fun. I still hate Space Wolves. I still don't know why I really chose them, but I just thought it was a unique army to put together, and it had a lot of specific units I wanted to try my hand at, and then doing things like flesh and fur, and then doing things like the snow bases was a lot of fun to learn. So yeah, I don't regret this project at all, and to be honest, I'm actually looking forward to the next project. So that's it. Thank you for following along with this series. If you follow along with it, my next thing will probably be the Eldar series. But I'm also considering doing a second video series around Crusade reviews. So I notice whenever I watch YouTube videos that review the various codexes, they tend to skip over the Crusade section. So they talk about all the Battleforge rules, attachment rules, relics, warlord traits, psychic power, etc., and they jump straight to the data sheets, skipping over Crusade. So I've certainly noticed a few things about the different Crusade forces and what's good and what doesn't work and what does. So I've decided I'm going to do a series of videos where I just review the Crusade rules for each faction, based on my experience with reading the books, playing them, playing with other friends, to sort of see how I feel they went. Like, for example, I personally think the Death Guard are a really powerful Crusade force, despite not necessarily being top tier in terms of the general gameplay. And it's just because of how the Crusade rules work. But I'm not going to cover that now. I'll cover that in a future video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the whole series. And I hope that you will enjoy more videos on my channel in the future. Please like and leave a comment. Anything you want to say about the Space Wolves, about my project, about the outcomes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for paying attention. And have a wonderful day.